We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. Some betrayals don't come crashing like thunder. They arrive quietly, wrapped in soft smiles and late-night excuses. For 35-year-old Jason Cole, life had become a pattern of comfort, the kind that dulls you, not fulfills you. Every morning began the same. Coffee brewing at 6, a kiss on the cheek from his wife Madison, and a quick commute to his job as a civil engineer in Denver. They had a neat house, matching mugs, and what looked, on the outside, like stability. But inside, Jason had been noticing cracks forming. Madison's laughter wasn't the same anymore. It used to light up a room. Now it felt rehearsed. She spent hours working late, her phone always face down on the table. When he'd ask what was wrong, she'd smile and say, "You worry too much." Still, he kept believing her, because that's what love does. It blinds you until you start mistaking neglect for normal. That Friday morning, he woke early, ironing his shirt while their golden retriever, Max, snored at his feet. Madison came downstairs in a silk robe, looking like a scene from a perfume commercial. Hair tied perfectly, her voice too sweet for that early hour. "Morning," she said, brushing past him for her coffee. He smiled. "Early start." "Yeah, meetings all day," she replied, eyes flicking to her phone. Jason had once admired that drive in her, how she chased goals, how ambition looked good on her. But lately, he'd begun to wonder if her career wasn't the only thing she was chasing. When she left for work, he noticed something unusual. Her suitcase, half hidden near the door. He almost asked, but the logical part of his brain told him not to jump to conclusions. Maybe it's a client trip, he reasoned. Maybe she forgot to mention it. But by noon, when his lunch break rolled around and she hadn't replied to any of his texts, a heavy unease began to form in his gut. He tried to shake it off, went back to reviewing blueprints. But at 5:12 p.m., just as he was packing up to head home, his phone buzzed. One notification, one message that would turn his calm suspicion into a wildfire of clarity. "Don't freak out, Jason. I'm spending the weekend with Aaron. We just need closure." His hand tightened around the phone. He read it twice. Then again, not because he didn't understand, because he couldn't believe the audacity. The woman who promised forever was off chasing her past. Jason didn't reply immediately. He simply sat there in his quiet office, the hum of the fluorescent lights droning in the background, his mind already building the plan, not of rage, but of precision. When he finally typed back, his fingers didn't shake. His message was calm, deliberate, even kind on the surface. "Take Monday too, Madison. You'll need it." And when he hit send, he didn't just send a text. He signed the beginning of her downfall. Because Jason Cole wasn't the kind of man who screamed or begged. He was the kind who let silence do the talking, and consequences do the teaching. Madison's car was gone before sunrise the next morning. Jason stood by the living room window, mug in hand, watching the faint trail of her taillights disappear down the quiet street. She hadn't even tried to hide it. That part almost made him laugh. She was so confident he'd just sit there and wait, like a loyal fool clinging to hope. He took a long sip of coffee, letting the bitterness steady him. Then he smiled. Not the kind of smile you wear for pictures, but the one that hides purpose. For years, he'd poured himself into that marriage. Late-night dinners, surprise getaways, small love notes tucked in her laptop bag. He gave everything, his trust, his time, his heart, and in return, she gave him a performance. But now the performance was over. He walked through the house slowly, letting his eyes linger on the framed photos lining the hallway. Wedding smiles, beach trips, laughter frozen in time. All eyes, he thought. Every picture a snapshot of make-believe. Then his gaze fell on the one from their first anniversary. Madison in a white sundress, laughing, eyes full of something that almost looked like love. He lifted the frame, set it face down on the table, and whispered, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." By noon, Jason was at work, pretending to go through the motions. But his mind was elsewhere, methodically assembling his plan. Madison thought this was going to be just another fling with her old flame Aaron. She thought she'd get away with it again, just like last time. Not this time. Jason wasn't going to yell or throw things. He wanted something that would hurt the way betrayal hurts. Not with noise, but with silence. At lunch, he called his lawyer friend, Cole Turner. They played baseball together in college. Cole owed him a few favors. Need some advice, Jason said evenly, stirring his coffee. Cole chuckled. You sound serious. Trouble at work? Not exactly. Trouble at home. There was a pause on the line. You finally done giving her second chances? Jason's jaw tightened. Let's just say she handed me my reason this morning. By the end of that call, Jason knew exactly what to do. He spent the rest of the day quietly pulling together bank statements, property documents, passwords, everything she'd taken for granted that he'd never touch. Meanwhile, Madison was 200 miles away, checking into a resort by the lake. She posted photos on social media. Just scenery, never faces. Jason saw them all. The reflection of a man's arm in her sunglasses, the faint blur of Erin's tattoo near her shoulder, tiny details she thought he wouldn't notice. But Jason always noticed. He didn't rage. He planned. Saturday came and went quietly. He moved through the day with mechanical calm, canceled her credit cards, changed the locks, and transferred the joint account into a new private one under his name. He even packed her belongings, neatly, respectfully, and left them in boxes by the front door. When neighbors saw him moving things, they thought maybe they were renovating. He smiled, kept his tone light. Just clearing out some space, he said. By evening, Jason had one more step. He opened his laptop and began drafting an email. His tone was calm, almost polite, as he addressed Madison's employer, a firm where he had once helped him secure a client through his own connections. He didn't say much, just facts, dates, records, and screenshots. Her repeated absences and client trips that matched her messages to Erin. Nothing inflammatory, just enough to plant doubt where her reputation mattered most. When he hit send, he leaned back in his chair, feeling the weight of years lift off his shoulders. It wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. It was clarity. Sunday morning, Madison's text started. Hey, can we talk? Jason, this isn't what it looks like. You're overreacting. I just needed time to think. He didn't answer. By mid-afternoon, the tone changed. The texts grew desperate. Please, just pick up. I'm coming home tonight. Then another. Why did you freeze my cards? Jason let out a quiet breath, watching the messages flood in, each one more frantic than the last. He typed one reply. Home. That's funny. You said you needed closure. Take your time. When she finally called, 10 missed calls deep, he answered, voice calm, almost kind. Hey, Mads. Jason. Please, just let me explain. It was stupid, I swear. He cut her off. I don't need the details. You made your choice. Her voice cracked. You can't just shut me out like this. He let a pause hang in the air before saying softly, That's exactly what you did the first time you lied to me. She sobbed quietly on the line. I'll come home tonight, okay? We'll fix it. Jason's tone never wavered. You'll find your things by the door. The locks have changed. And, Madison, take Monday off. You're going to need it. There was a stunned silence, followed by a soft, broken whisper. What did you do? Jason smiled faintly. Just gave you what you asked for, freedom. Then he hung up. As he stood there, watching the last of the sunlight fade across the living room, a strange calm filled him. The pain was still there, but it wasn't weakness anymore. It was power. Madison thought she could play games with love, but she forgot that sometimes the quietest man in the room is the one writing the ending. By the time Madison's car rolled up the driveway late Sunday afternoon, the house didn't feel like hers anymore. The lawn was freshly cut, the curtains drawn, and the sound of Max barking echoed through the quiet neighborhood like a warning. Her keys didn't fit the door. The lock had been changed. She froze there on the porch, suitcase in hand, the air thick with dread. For the first time, Madison realized Jason wasn't bluffing. She knocked once, then again louder. Jason, please open up. No answer, only the faint hum of the air conditioning unit from inside. After a moment, she noticed the boxes by the door, her clothes, her framed photos, her favorite perfume, even her wedding dress neatly folded in a sealed plastic bag. On top of one box sat a small envelope, her name written in Jason's tidy handwriting. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single note. You always said you want a fresh start. I'm just giving you one. Jay. No anger. No insults. Just calm finality. That, somehow, hurt worse than shouting ever could. Meanwhile, Jason wasn't home. He was sitting across town at a small diner, sipping his coffee, chatting with Cole Turner, the lawyer who'd helped him set things in motion. Cole leaned back in his seat, impressed. You really did it. Most guys would have just packed a bag and left. Jason's eyes stayed fixed on the window. Leaving would have been easy. I wanted her to feel what I felt. Every bit of it. Cole nodded slowly. You're calm for a man whose marriage just exploded. Jason smiled faintly. Because I'm done living in someone else's lie. The waitress came by, a woman named Brooke, mid-30s, kind eyes, and a voice that carried quiet warmth. She topped off his coffee and gave him a small smile. Rough week. Jason chuckled softly. You could say that. Well, she said, setting the pot down, coffee won't fix everything, but it's a good start. He smiled back, almost surprised by how natural it felt to smile again. Back at the house, Madison was spiraling. She sat on the porch steps, scrolling through her phone, desperate. Her credit cards were declined, her savings frozen. Her company had emailed her earlier that day. Suspension pending an internal review. Someone had anonymously sent them personal conduct concerns. Her stomach dropped. Jason hadn't yelled. He'd planned. Tears streaked down her face as she whispered. He wouldn't, he couldn't. But she knew he could. And he had. For years, Madison had controlled the narrative. She'd been the one walking out, the one calling the shots. Jason had always been patient, forgiving, too gentle to fight back. But now, he'd become everything she underestimated. A man who found strength in silence. She drove to a nearby motel that night, the kind with flickering lights and worn carpet. The clerk looked half asleep when she handed over her ID. Single night? He asked. She nodded. Yeah, just one night. But the truth was, she didn't know where else to go. Jason got home later that evening. He saw the empty boxes still on the porch, the note gone, and knew she'd been there. For a moment, he felt a pang of something, grief, maybe, not for her, but for the version of himself that had once believed love could fix anything. Inside, the house was spotless, quiet, peaceful. He poured himself a drink and sat by the window. For the first time in years, he didn't feel the weight of someone else's lies hanging in the air. His phone buzzed again, another message from Madison. Please, Jason, I made a mistake. I was stupid. I miss you. Just talk to me. He read it once, then set the phone down. He didn't reply. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any revenge ever could. The next morning, Madison showed up at his office. She looked exhausted, hair messy, eyes swollen, mascara smudged. Jason, please, she pleaded as soon as he stepped into the hallway. I just need 5 minutes. Please, just talk to me. He paused, glanced around to make sure his coworkers weren't watching too closely, and gestured toward a quiet conference room. When the door shut, the silence between them was heavy. Madison started crying before she could even speak. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she said. It was stupid, I swear. Aaron doesn't mean anything to me. I wanted to feel something again. Jason crossed his arms. You mean you wanted to feel powerful again? You wanted to see if you could still get away with it? She looked up at him, stunned. No, that's not. Save it, he said quietly. You lied to me once, and I forgave you. You lied again and expected me to stay. You don't get to break something twice and call it love. Her voice cracked. I've lost everything, Jason. Please, just give me another chance. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, with quiet finality, he said, You already had it, and you threw it away. He stood to leave, but she grabbed his hand, desperate. I love you. He gently pulled his hand free. You love what I gave you. That's not the same thing. Then he walked out, calm, steady, unbroken. That night, Jason drove to the lake where they'd once celebrated their anniversary. The water shimmered under the city lights, peaceful and endless. For the first time in years, he felt a strange kind of freedom, painful but clean. He didn't need to punish her anymore. The silence, the distance, the life she'd thrown away, that was punishment enough. He whispered to the wind, Thank you for showing me who you really are. And somewhere, miles away in that dim motel room, Madison stared at her phone through tears, reading and rereading their last conversation. Her weekend with her ex was supposed to be an escape, but in the end, it became her undoing. Monday morning dawned clear and quiet, the kind of calm that follows after a long storm. Jason woke early, the same way he always did, but this time, The silence in the house felt peaceful rather than lonely. The sunlight crept through the blinds, glinting off the ring he'd set down on the dresser the night before. Her ring. He hadn't thrown it away. He didn't need to. Some things lose their power once you stop holding on. He got ready for work like it was any other day. Tie perfectly straight, shoes polished, coffee in hand. But everything felt different now. He wasn't dragging himself through life anymore. He was moving forward. At the office, people noticed it immediately. The calm in his voice, the new steadiness in his eyes. Even Cole, his lawyer friend, gave him a knowing grin when they crossed paths in the hallway. "Guess you slept better than she did," he said jokingly. Jason smirked. "Best sleep I've had in years." That afternoon, while reviewing project files, Jason received an email from Madison's company, a courtesy message confirming she'd been suspended indefinitely. There was no satisfaction in it anymore, just closure. Actions had consequences, and she was finally learning what that felt like. Madison, on the other hand, was unraveling. She sat alone in her motel room, surrounded by silence and regret. The walls felt like they were closing in, the air stale and heavy. Her phone was filled with messages she'd typed and deleted, apologies that didn't sound enough, pleas that went unanswered. She scrolled through old pictures, the lake trip, the movie nights, the morning pancakes Jason used to make on Sundays. Back then, she used to tell people she'd married her best friend. Somewhere along the way, she'd convinced herself she deserved more excitement, not realizing she already had something rare: peace. When she finally mustered the courage to call him one last time, the line went straight to voicemail. His voice was calm, distant, recorded days before. "This is Jason. Leave a message." She hesitated, then whispered, "I don't know what to say except, I ruined everything. You didn't deserve this. I wish I'd realized what I had before I lost it." Her voice cracked halfway through. She ended the call without finishing. The message sat there, unsent, as she dropped the phone onto the bed and buried her face in her hands. Jason didn't hear that message, and he didn't need to. He'd already moved on in his heart. That evening, he stopped by the same diner where he'd first met Brooke. The place smelled like fresh coffee and cinnamon pie. Brooke smiled when she saw him. "Back again, huh?" He chuckled softly. "Guess I'm becoming a regular." "Well," she said, pouring him a cup, "regulars get the best seats." They talked easily, not about the past, not about pain, but about small, ordinary things: weekend hikes, music, and the dog that kept stealing socks from his laundry. It wasn't romantic yet. It wasn't supposed to be. It was just simple. And for Jason, that simplicity was everything he'd been missing. When he walked out of the diner, the night air was cool, crisp, and full of promise. He stood for a moment beneath the soft glow of the streetlights, breathing in deeply. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't broken. He was free. Back at the motel, Madison looked out the window at the fading light. For the first time, she understood what she traded love for: a weekend thrill that vanished as quickly as it came. Jason had always been steady, patient, the kind of man who built things that lasted. And she tore it all down. By Sunday night, she wasn't just begging to come home. She was begging for the version of herself she used to be when she still deserved him. But Jason wasn't that same man anymore. He'd rebuilt himself from the ashes of her betrayal. And this time, he wasn't looking back. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about restoring what they try to take from you. And as Jason drove home that night, the city lights flickering across his windshield, he realized something quietly profound. The best kind of revenge is peace.